Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Passionate Talk. I am your host, Gary Carp, and this is episode number 31. Today is the second half of my conversation with independent wrestler and fitness coach, Adam Carey. And we're going to jump into the conversation right where we left off, with Adam answering the question about his personal beliefs. We're also going to talk a little bit about the podcast that Adam and I hosted together about 4 or 5 years ago called The Hype Is Here, and retell some of the stories of that podcast. Adam is also going to tell us about his love for the weather and his journey to become an amateur meteorologist. And personally, I think he's better than the meteorologists we see out there on the evening news. He's going to tell us how he helps people save money and how he could help you save money. And then he's going to share with us the scariest thing that ever happened to him. And folks, it's a Lifetime movie, so you don't want to miss it. So right now, I invite you to sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, maybe some tea, and get ready to listen to the second half of my interview with Adam. And you put up a great front in front of people. You're cocky, you're arrogant, you play it off like nothing really matters to you. But you're really one of the most spiritual and deep-minded people and thoughtful people that I have ever met. So if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us a little bit about your personal beliefs and philosophies in life? Not only what drove you to overcome the drugs and the alcohol, but just your general life purposes and why you believe we're meant to be here, what our purpose is, that kind of stuff.
Well, I do believe in God. I was raised a Christian, Baptist, obviously. In my years, I think I've kind of found a middle ground with what's I think that man has dictated what is real and what is not real to the point where who knows what's real anymore. We all have our own beliefs, what's above us and what's below us and around us and whatever. But in the end, I think with me, I live a life where, and I think this is something I've realized within the last few years, even that if I can live day in and day out and help somebody and be honest with the way I feel about things rather than putting up that front, rather than pretending I'm something that I'm trying to be rather than what I want to be. I feel like that's what's going to get me wherever I wind up being. We live one life, and one thing we do know for sure is that we're here right now. You know, I've heard somebody try to sell me on the fact that we live in a hologram, which is such a fascinating thought to think that, hey, is this all real? But that's a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah, that's a different show.
yeah. But I guess my point on that is that what we know is what we live right now. And if you think about it, the good things that happen to us in life are because somebody else took the time to be good to somebody else. And I'm just a firm believer in you get what you want out of this life. And if you want to help somebody and be good to somebody, then do it to feel good. I think there is a God. I think there's a God. I don't know if he's necessarily judging our every move, but there has to be more to this than just you live and die. If you look at this universe and how vast it is to the point we can't understand it, there's no way we're that important to where we're the only ones here. You know what I mean?
I would have to agree with you that we can't be the only intelligent creatures here. Now, as you can tell, folks, Adam is more than a wrestler, as I said. He's got wonderful thoughts and beliefs, and he loves to have conversations about bigger topic issues, which is one thing I found out about him when I got really close with him and we were on those roads from the many, many months that we were wrestling together. That was one of the reasons I asked him if he wanted to come on this show so we could have these bigger conversations. But I think you can tell just from the interplay that you can hear between us that he's also a lot of fun and a bit of a character. So I right now want to talk about our former show, which was The Hype Is Here, which started out it was described, as I described Passionate Talk, as somebody coming across two friends talking in a coffee shop. The Hype Is Here was really two guys just being assholes sitting in a bar, right? But it was a lot of fun. We also handled a lot of difficult topics in that show. It wasn't just all fun and games because we had a lot of stuff was going down in society at the time, as it is right now. What was the one thing that you were most proud of about The Hype Is Here?
That we were natural. I mean, me and you have always had a connection with one another, and the fact that I personally felt like that show was innovative. There was a time where podcasts and radio shows weren't necessarily a huge thing like they are now. But the main thing I'm proud of about that show is that it was a natural ebb and flow. Everything that me and you experienced together as friends came across from that show.
Oh yeah. At that point, we were doing the podcast. I had just moved back to New York from Florida after getting evicted from my home, and the people who have listened to the show for a while know that story. How I lost my job, how I became homeless, and I had to move back to New York. And we wanted a way of staying in contact with each other because at that point we were working out together every day. We were hanging out. We were talking. We were creating wrestling storylines together. So basically, we were a married couple for all intents and purposes, right?
Absolutely.
That's how often we saw each other. And we wanted a way of keeping that friendship. So we said, hey, why don't we just get a podcast? We knew nothing about podcasting at this point. But we did have fun and we were natural and we were just goofing off. And I think it's very true what you said. You've got to be natural. And if there's anybody out there that's listening to the show that wants to start that podcast, wants to get their message out there, the main thing to remember is to just be natural and be yourself. Don't try to be like me. Don't try to be like Joe Rogan. Don't try to be like Tim Ferriss or John Lee Dumas. Just be yourself. That's what really worked for Adam and I with The Hype Is Here. And we took it from an idea that was just two guys just hanging out and really, I'll say it again, being assholes. And that idea hit a certain market and it grew to thousands of listeners that we had that were watching the show, or I should say listening to the show because it was not a video podcast at the time. And we really impacted a lot of people and took on a lot of subjects. And if it wasn't for demons that both you and I were fighting at that time, that show could possibly still be going on. But I think for the time it was there, I'm very proud of the work we did on it. And folks, if you're interested in listening to any of those old episodes of The Hype Is Here, I believe they're still archived on Blog Talk Radio.
They absolutely are. In fact, I was just pulling them up here in front of me, just kind of get an idea for the time frame. But some of our last official shows were around 2014. You can go back and listen to all of them. We did Hype Is Here Radio, which was a comedy twist on everything in the news and particular characters and whatnot. But there was also, and again, if you've ever wanted more insight into the wrestling business, I also did a wrestling show, Hype Wrestling Radio. So they're all there. All you have to do is type in Hype Radio at the top of the search bar and it'll pull up every show we ever did. And let me tell you something, there are certain shows in there that were I would put it up against anything that is on the airwaves today. They were fantastic.
Yes, and then if you get really lucky, you can find the shows where you knew it was the end of a really, 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 really bad marriage.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
It was not funny. It just, you're never supposed to air your dirty laundry. Well, we didn't air it. We broadcast it to the entire world and put it on DVD and mailed the DVD out to everybody.
Oh boy, did we ever! I tell you, then that was my fault, And again, taking responsibility for that. I was during the time of this show. This was an escape for me. I don't think I mentioned that. This was a way for me to kind of get certain emotions, certain anger, and get it out. This was my venting session. I didn't pull like silly me. Who would think to go to a psychiatrist and talk to somebody in private? Hell, let's put it on the airwaves. Why not? It goes to that narcissistic reality that I was trying to live, where I felt like having a radio show and taking those mean thoughts and those terrible feelings and putting them on the air was the only way to handle it. That's a perfect point. If you think about it, when you're in the deepest, darkest depths of addiction and alcoholism, hell, let's have a radio show and let's talk about it. It just really is a crazy thing to think about.
It is a crazy thing. but it did work, and we did touch a lot of people. And I think that in a way, you actually helped a lot of people because you were so open and honest about your addictions and your afflictions and how you were fighting them. And the fact that now, many, many years later, 3, 4 years later, hopefully some of those listeners of Hype is Here will tune into this episode of Passionate Talk and hear us talking again and hear how you not only survived, but you thrived. I mean, you've got a beautiful wife. You bought a second house after losing the first one. You now have a job that allows you to have the freedom to set your own schedule and to have the money to come and go as you please. So you really have taken your life, cleaned yourself up, and taken it to the next level. And I know that you can do that for other people, specifically in the area of health, because you did it for me.
Oh yeah, I enjoy helping people in general, and whether it be, I have a fascination with the weather, science in general. I did 2 years of meteorology. I have just kind of let that go because I was so in depth with traveling in the wrestling business. But I'm still an amateur meteorologist, so I help people with the weather. As crazy as that sounds, I I I I do a lot of long term predicting, and I mean, like I said, whether it be health, whether it be weather, whether it be pretty much anything. I also have been trying some other things lately where I'm helping people close to me, and I'm thinking about going out on a branch and trying this, but I'm helping other people try to do the things I wasn't able to do and save money and lower your bills and little tricks to the trade to help you save money because I've done a lot of different types of customer service, whether it be customer services, in my opinion, part of helping people lose weight, customer services, just anything you do to help people. So I'm trying to branch out and trying to do the things to give back to the people that like I should have done in the past.
So give us one tip on how we can save money. If someone would come to you and say, hey, how could I save money? I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I got to get everything. How do you save money?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to look at everything in front of you and decide, hey, what do I actually need in life? What can I not live without? For example, I'll best way to put this. We all pay too much for something we enjoy. But what do you really need to live? Do you need that $300 bill each month that you're paying for cable, and all that? Like a little thing I do, it's just a little thing. Never accept your first answer. If somebody tells you that this is what you have to pay for something, always question it because competition creates value. Competition creates better pricing. If you call a company and you say to them, "Hey, this is what I need," and they give you a price, always question why is that price. You'd be shocked at how many times folks will charge you something and don't really have a reason behind it. There's always a better price to everything. So always
Yeah, and
question.
always question is not always only a great piece of advice for dealing and negotiating with like cable companies and cell phone companies and just in regular shopping situations and buying. But it's also great in everything we do. You should always question everything. Question your lawyer, question your doctor, because they're not you and they don't know the best thing that's for you. So that's a wonderful piece of advice.
I think we get too caught up in life thinking that just because somebody who knows a great deal about something tells me that that's right for me, like you just said, nobody knows you like you know you. So always take somebody's advice and question it, twist it to where it makes sense for you. And just because 1,000 people got something out of it doesn't mean you're that one who won't. You always have to find what works for you.
Now, I'm going to pivot a little bit here, and I'm going to bring back a blast from the past for those who remember the hype, but I'm going to put it on you. We had a feature on the show, weekly feature on the show. I don't remember how it came up, but it became a very popular part of our show called The Embarrassing Gary Story of the Day. And
Yes.
it always seemed that every week some strange stuff would happen to me and I would embarrass the heck out of myself. So now I'm going to ask you for the embarrassing Adam story of the day.
Oh boy, you picked me at a good time, my friend. I've got one. And this is very you like. This was been a story.
This was very
5
me-like. Okay,
Yes.
folks, buckle in.
Yes, this was a story 5 years ago. I would have chuckled until I bled. There's just no doubt. And then when it happens to you, it's not that funny. But found this out the hard way. It was gosh, it was a rainy day here in Northeast Florida where I live, and I had went to pick up my wife from work at the time. So I told her, I said, look, I don't really feel like cooking. We're just gonna swing through and get something. So I went to go through the drive-through somewhere, some whatever, pick something up, and I realized the line was so long. I said, "You know what? Well, I know better. I'm just going to go inside and get it." Well, went inside, got what we wanted. The wife sitting in the car, playing her game on her phone, whatever. And right as I left, I went through the crosswalk where you would normally walk to the car. As I did, I stepped down in a drive-through area. Oil and water do not mix. My feet went head over heels in the air. Chicken nuggets went flying everywhere. Um, and I landed flat on my back. And there's that split second where you land, you realize you're okay. I'm breathing. Okay. I'm hurting, but I'm breathing. Now, did anybody else see it? And wouldn't you just know
Yep.
it? Yes. I get up. I'm picking up what's left of my bag of food.
Please tell me please tell me there was somebody with a cell phone that was putting it on Instagram or streaming it on Facebook. Please.
Even worse. Some of the life's best humiliations are the most intimate. So I get up. There's an old lady now getting out of her van in the drive-thru to help me up. She's got to be at least 75. She's not there filming it. She's limping herself over to me to try to get me up. And I'm horrified because she's leaning down, trying to pick me up. I'm trying to pull myself up. I'm thinking she's gonna fall, and we're just all gonna have it to do. Well, finally, it's that. What happened? It's that. I'm fine, ma'am. Let me go. So she couldn't go because I'm sprawled out in front of her. She's just trying to get her food. So I get up, I get in the car. I'm bleeding from the hands. My knees hurt. And the wife gets up. She looks at me and she says, "What happened to the food?" And I said, and
Honey, you forgot my French fries.
literally, that's the first thing. What happened to the food? Never mind that apparently I got into a bar fight getting your food. I'm bleeding from the hands. My head hurts. I have to steer with my fingers because my hands are bloody. What happened to the food? I said, honey, your food's fine. Mine's gone. Enjoy.
Okay, well, that was worth 4 years waiting for. It really was.
Horrified. I've never felt that kind of humiliation. Now I know what it felt like to be with you.
Yes, and there were plenty of times that I had embarrassing stories of the day. Go back, listen to the Hype in the Blog Talk Radio archives. You will hear a whole lot of embarrassing Gary stories of the day. But since this is my show, I don't have to tell any of them.
Excellent. You know what? Whenever you need listeners, you'll just have to invite me on just to tell the stories that I've got from you over the year. I mean, there's stories, folks. Gary is a very knowledgeable person. He's somebody I respect more than many people that I've ever met. And I legitimately mean that because he's taught me things that I didn't even know I was learning at the time. But I'm telling you something. You do not know the value of a friendship until you're following one of them along. Their shoe has came apart and it's flapping back and forth. And all I could do, instead of helping him, I could just film it and say, keep walking.
That's actually a true story, folks. This was back when I was in a really bad place in Jacksonville. I was a couple of weeks from being evicted. I had no job. My shoes were literally falling apart, okay? And instead of helping me out of the car when my knee popped, that's the part of the story you forgot, because I have a trick knee because I was hit by a car when I was 22, and my knee will pop out every once in a while if I turn it the wrong way, and I can't stand, I can't walk, I can't do anything. This kindly gentleman that we're talking with, instead of getting out of the car and helping me to my apartment, grabs his cell phone, films me walking, or I should say limping, okay, while he's maniacally, evilly cackling at my pain and discomfort.
If I'm not mistaken, one time I was going to drop you off at the apartment. I actually didn't pull all the way up to the apartment. I parked further away so I could watch you try to hassle yourself up the steps. It really was a good time.
Yes, this is what the best of friendships are built like. And if you're saying to yourself, folks, well, okay, I'm listening to this episode of Passionate Talk, and this nice, intelligent, compassionate gentleman that I've been listening to for about a month or 2 months now is gone and is replaced by, well, somebody strange who I don't know. This is what Adam does to me, okay? The intelligent guy is still there. Adam, we all have that one friend that brings out the worst in us, right? It's usually the person that your wife or your husband will say, honey, they're never allowed in the house. They're never coming over. Adam is that friend for me. So I assure you that next week we'll be back to the nice, intelligent Gary. But for one show, I'm channeling my inner asshole.
And you know what's funny, and it's kind of a talking point. You should never judge people based on based on what you see or what you feel that first time. Give people a chance in life. I'll never forget the first time I met you. I'd worked with you, I'd seen you, but it was raining on a day where we were both leaving work, and you had asked me for a ride to the bus stop at the time. So I went up there, I got in my car, we got in the car, and I'll just never forget watching you just clumsily get in the car. You're just spraying water everywhere. You're wet. You're wiping your shoes on the bottom of the floorboard. Your umbrella's just broken. I think it even had a hole in it. And I remember looking at you. I'm thinking, man, I could never handle. I can't deal with this guy. There's no way I can handle this. And that was my initial thought. I said, I just remember thinking, I've thought that about two other people in my life, and we became best friends since. So always, if somebody rubs you the wrong way, remember, you don't know what people are going through in life. You don't know what they faced that day. You don't know what's happening with them. Give them a second chance to impress you.
It's also important that when you look at that person and I don't like this person, you get that feeling of, my God, I can never hang out with this person. This person is an idiot. He's a jerk. Remember that that's just a projection of yourself onto the other person. That what you're really doing is reflecting your opinions about parts of you that you really don't care for, that you really don't like. So when you get those feelings of, like Adam had for me the first time he met me, ask yourself, what is it about that's upsetting you? Can you see that person in you? Because that's really a gift from the universe to help you grow and reach the next level and next stage of development.
Absolutely. And everybody needs somebody. I was always a loner, somebody who honestly just kind of made it through life alone. I mean, at 17 years old, I had met a woman, and I was traveling to Connecticut to see her every month. This was in the early ages of the internet. I didn't need anybody. I had family begging me, look, don't do this. And here I am purchasing my own flights, going up there to see somebody who I'd met online, doing these strange things that nobody could even consider. And at the time, I don't remember ever having any fear. I was putting people in these awkward positions of having to go with me because I felt like I needed somebody there with me, but I never felt like I was in any danger. And looking back, in a different place in life, I'm thinking, my God, what was I doing?
Could you tell us one story that, looking back, you could look at yourself and go, wow, that was stupid? What was one situation that you put yourself in during those years that you were traveling to the girl out of state and that you were on the road wrestling, that upon reflection you go, wow, that was not a smart thing to do?
Oh my goodness. The girl I met in Connecticut. Here I live in Florida. I was 17 years old. We met online, and the internet was this new thing, so it was literally in its infancy. And I remember sneaking up there without her family knowing. And I remember risking everything that I was to see this person that I felt like was going to be the rest of my life. And I also remember when it all went wrong, and I literally had $1 to my name.
But something happened in Connecticut that was dangerous. Okay. And I really want to hear that story.
Okay. I can definitely tell that story. So, first off, you're flying up there. You don't know the people you're visiting. You know them from talking to them on. It's just it shows you that I was able to convince these people to have me up there and help me. Well, um, so the story goes, I've been seeing this girl for about 8 or 9 months, and one day after going up there maybe 5 or 6 times, she calls me and she says, "Adam, it's not going to work out." I said, "The hell it's not. What do you mean it's not going to work out?" She says, "My family doesn't want you to come up here anymore. They don't want me to see you." And I said, "Look, we can make this work." And she says, "I don't think so." I said, "Look, give me the opportunity to make this work. I'm coming up there." I got up there. Um, by the time I got up there, again, you talk about burning bridges. There were 2 hotels in town where she lived. The one hotel we normally stayed at, we had pretty much ransacked the last time we were there, so he wouldn't let me stay there. So there was one other hotel. I got in there, and the only reason why I got in there is because I called a family member who had a credit card to basically vouch for me. I would go up there, and she worked at a Subway. So I would sit in the Subway to see her. I'd see her for maybe 45.
Now that's the Subway sandwich store. Okay.
Yes, yes. Yes. So she worked at a Subway restaurant. I would sit up there. I'd just talk to her while she was working. I'd see her for maybe 30, 45 minutes afterwards, go back to my hotel room. By the time I was done seeing her, she was all in. She wanted to do this. And here we are, kids just trying to make it, quote unquote. Well, um, the last day came, and I went up there to see her. And I remember her telling me to stay. She kept telling me, make sure you stay right there. She had me sit in a very particular spot in the restaurant. So I sat there, again, just blinded by my own wants and needs. And I went back to my hotel feeling really good, thinking, I'm going to leave here. I accomplished what I wanted. We're going to be together. Well, about an hour after I got through seeing her, I get a knock on the door, and I open the door, and it's her. There's a cab sitting outside. She said, I had to come see you one more time. Well, we spent some time together, about 45 minutes. One thing led to another, and of course, we're in bed together. And another knock on the door. Well, immediately we pick ourselves up, we throw stuff on, we immediately try to get our stuff together. I had on shorts and a tank top. It was about 15 degrees outside. I go to open the door, and there is the owner of the hotel, her mother, and her real father. She had a stepfather, so to see the real father there was a little discerning. Um, he looks at me. He says, "Come with me." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You're coming with me." She walks off with her mother. He takes me. He took me to his house. He was a former police chief of Meriden, and to this day, I've never been as scared as I was that time. He set me in his home. He essentially handcuffed me to his chair. He had a gun. He says, "I could make you go away, and I'd never have to worry about you seeing my daughter again."
So when you saw the gun, what was your first thought?
How am I going to get out of this? What can I say to make this fool? First off, I was trying to gauge whether he was trying to scare me or not, because I questioned everything even at that time. I always thought anybody was trying to get over me, but I realized he was for real. Um, when that gun came out, and I heard it cock, like literally I heard it cock, and I'm like, oh my god. I said a prayer, and to be honest with you, I really didn't think I was going to leave there. Um, he then did something very odd. He said, "Tell me your phone number." And I thought it was very strange. He wanted my phone number, so I gave him my phone number. He called my mom, and he says, "I've got your son here with me." He says, and he says, "I know he's up here." He says, "This is the last time I'm ever going to see his face. Is that right?" And my mom's panicking. She says, she didn't know what to say. She says, "What's going on? What's going on?" He says, "This is the last time I'm going to see his face, right?" And my mom said, "Yes." He says, "Okay." And he hung up. He put me back in the car. He dropped me off about 3 miles from the hotel. He says, "I'm going to let you walk." He says, "And I will have somebody watching you until you get on that plane tomorrow." He says, "If you don't get on that plane," he says, "your mother will never see your face again." Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I've got to interrupt you because, I mean, this is stuff of movie of the week kind of things. How did you, I mean, what went through your head when he said, if you don't get on that plane, your mother will never see your face again.
Well, as crazy as it sounds, I was still trying to figure out in my demented head what I was going to do to get back to the girl that I thought was my love of my life.
So you were so wrapped up in the story you were telling yourself that none of this was really registering with
Nope.
you.
It registered for a moment where he had me held there, but after that, I was still trying to figure out how I was going to make this all work because I had a vision to make it work. That was all that mattered.
That's folks, we all face situations that we think are dangerous, but Adam is sitting here sharing a story about how in his, and I'll use the word
Mhm.
sickness, was telling stories of grandeur to himself about how he was going to win the girl. And in this society, that's how we're trained. From every fairy tale we ever read of Cinderella and Prince Charming and Beauty and the Beast and Rapunzel and every story in the movies, it's always the guy is going to win the girl. No matter what, they have no choice. And it's very prevalent in today's society with everything going on with Harvey Weinstein and Al Franken and Matt Lauer and Representative Conyers. It's really leads to a situation of where women are disrespected. And if you have that illness again, and I don't mean to get on a soapbox from this, and I'll get off very shortly, that you think that you can bend them to your will. And that's really not the case. You went so far that this man burst into a hotel room, dragged you to a house that in a town that you were not familiar with. You were all alone. He brandished a gun. He threatened your life. He called your mother and threatened your life to your
Mhm.
mother. He dumped you out on the road and told you would be followed until you got on the plane. And if you didn't get on the plane, well, he was going to
Yeah.
kill you.
Yeah.
And you was so wrapped up in that narcissistic story, that story of power that men are always trained to have, that you didn't realize how deep you were in.
No, it was about me and what I wanted to achieve. And that next day, I went back to the hotel, and that next day, like I said, I literally had, I want to say like $3 to my name. I used two of it. I walked into town. I had a limo ready to pick me up at the first hotel I was supposed to be staying at, so I had to walk back into town about 3 miles. I went to a McDonald's, got me some food, and I used that last dollar that I had to my name to make phone calls trying to get a hold of said girl. There you go. I mean, it was all about what I wanted to make happen for myself.
So, and thank you for sharing that story, because it's just a wild story and it just goes to reemphasize what's going on in today's society. What lessons did you take away from that? After that moment, did you find yourself treating other people, women specifically, differently? Did you look at relationships differently? How did that change you? What lessons did you take from
Well,
that?
the twist was that wasn't actually it. When I got back to here where I'm at, I actually got a hold of her about a week later. And
So
yeah.
after all that, you
Oh
called her
yeah, yeah, I
back?
got a hold of her, and come to find out, I've been hoodooed. She had me sitting in that restaurant. She left without calling her parents to come get her on purpose, to where I would get caught. She knew how her father would react. It was all kind of a setup to get me away, to not have to tell me I don't want to be with you, to just kind of get me to go away one way or another. And she had her family do her dirty work. But here's the twisted part. I didn't take out of that, hey, you almost got yourself killed, etc. No, about 6 months later, I found somebody else online. They happened to live in another faraway area, and almost idealistically, I set it up to where I would go up there without her family knowing, and I spent time with her. In my mind, I still had this power of I have to make the situation work.
Wow. I do want to thank you for sharing that story and giving us a little bit of the insight of the man you used to be and now. the man you are. And if anybody's been sticking with us through both parts of this interview and they've been hearing the stories that they're telling, they may get the idea that you're really not a nice guy.
Yeah.
And that is no longer true. So right now, could you tell us where you are in your life today and a little bit about your business, what you do for a living, your health and fitness, the coaching that you do on the side for people? Just tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so at this day, this was back when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. I'm 35 now. I have a wonderful wife who I've been married now going on 2 years. And, life nowadays is about helping people. It's about trying to figure out what I can do to make somebody else's life better. And that sounds like that's something everybody would say. But realistically, if I'm able to help somebody, I'm a happy person. I deal in the Main Man fitness plan, which is a fitness plan I developed based on my weight loss to help others. I establish fitness plans for some, but I help all. In the end, I'm just a person right now who's actually found a stable part in his life, who's able to talk openly about these things, hoping that somebody out there hears it and says, you know what? I see where he was at, and this is somewhere I can head as well.
So if anybody needs to get in contact with you, they want help getting in better shape, they want help losing weight or putting together a diet and nutrition plan, or they want help in learning how to save money and learning how to grow money, or and any other ways that you help people, letting them know how to, for lack of a better term, work the customer service system so you can get the best deals and save money on your monthly budget without sacrificing too much of what you have on a day in, day out basis. How could they get in touch with you?
Certainly. Hype is here at gmail.com is an email address I've had established since we obviously did the show. It's an email address that I still use. Hype is here at gmail.com. Shoot me an email. And again, I open myself up to all different forms of self help, self taught, self everything. The way I've learned things in life is I've taught myself. And when I feel like I've taught myself to a point where I need to get help from somebody else, I reach out to others. And you can do that too. If you have an interest, whether it be to lose weight, whether it be to save money, whether it be to, if you just need to talk, if you just need to talk to somebody who's been through some of the same things that you have, shoot me an email. Um, I consult free of charge. I will not charge you until you feel like you're at a point where you're willing to work with me. Again, I'm here to help, and no matter what it is, if you need to lose weight, but you're concerned, you feel like it's not open to you, you feel like you've hit a point where there's no return, we'll get you there. You don't have to be here with me either. I will work with you one on one, no matter what the situation is.
And folks, I want to let you know that is an extremely generous offer that Adam just made, that he will not charge you until you're in a position where you can pay for his services. And don't be afraid or too proud to take that step and give him a call or give someone else a call. Adam has done that for me in my weight. He has done that for me in my confidence. He has done that for me in so many other ways, and he's done it for other people, and he can do it for you. So please, if you want a free consultation and want to start a relationship with Adam where he can help you get to your health and fitness goals, drop him a line. hypeishere@gmail.com. Adam, is there one piece of advice that you want to leave people with just so they could improve their life?
Absolutely. Well, number one, let me say this. Um, if you can take one thing from anything that I say is just try to help one another. I mean, goodness gracious, everybody needs help with something. Like a phrase, it's not an elegant phrase, but I say it. Nobody came out of the womb walking. Everybody had to learn how to walk to get to somewhere. So, um, always remember that no matter how much pride you have, never feel like you can't get yourself in a better place. And always remember, if you feel like you're in a good place, don't forget how that feels, because you can lose it all just like that. As morbid as that sounds, it can happen the next day.
That is true. Take it from me. I went from being happily married and a job and the money to being divorced, broke, and homeless in a 6-month period of time. The good news, however, folks, is that that's not the end of anybody's story. It's just the beginning. We could reach out to the people who are around us, to our support system. We can get help from people that are there to help us, and we could rebuild our lives and make them better than they are. Adam, I can't tell you how much fun I've had sitting here and talking with you again like it was old times. I want to thank you for your time, and we will talk later.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Thank you. No one came out of the womb walking. I think Adam hit the nail on the head with that statement. It might be a little off color, but I think it's definitely accurate. We all come from a place of unconscious incompetence, and we are going to that place of unconscious competency. In other words, we go from we're bad at something and we don't know we're bad at it to it just comes naturally. There is no such thing as an overnight success. Nothing truly comes naturally to a master. A master will sit and work their craft until it seems to the outside world to come naturally. Private practice equals public praise. Adam dropped a ton of truth nuggets on us in that episode, and those stories that he told us, especially the story of him going to Connecticut to try and win and woo the girl, that really showed a lot about the person he was and the person he became, that he's willing to share that with us so that we can learn from his mistakes. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for this episode of Passionate Talk. So, until Monday, follow your dreams and passions and manifest the life that you choose.